Scottish Leather Group make the lowest carbon leather in the world. Sustainability is at the heart of everything we do. Our circular mindset produces the finest Scottish leather with the smallest possible impact on the environment.
Muirhead leather is in service literally all over the planet. In every country you go to, you will be able to see Muirhead leather on aircraft. The industry is changing. Though we've been making leather since 1840, it's not the same leather since 1840. The product has been evolving with the times and the needs of the industry. Airlines and seat OEMs are looking for new solutions. Solutions that are quicker, faster, more efficient and more sustainable. Sustainability and innovation is ingrained in our business and is already embedded in the products that we supply. But that's not stopping us. We're continuing to work on our journey to a net zero future. I'm Archie Browning. I'm the Sales Director at Muirhead. Muirhead is a 7th generation family business with its roots proudly here in Scotland. We've been manufacturing leather here since 1840. We specialise in leather for the aviation sector and have been since the first pressurised cabin was invented. We were the first people to pioneer flame retardant leather that met the requirements of the aviation industry. And since then, that passion and understanding for the performance, the reliability and consistency is what's kept us at the forefront of the industry. The family businesses that survive in the long term are those that invest heavily in the future. And we've done that very well at Muirhead. That's why we're still here in the 7th generation. In every aspect of our lives, work or private, we can see sustainability and the future of the planet as being absolutely fundamental. And this is only growing every day, in every country, at all levels. Our combination of family ownership, investment for the long term, and innovation allows us to become one of the lowest carbon supply chain partners for our customers. We've just recently opened up the largest and most modern cutting plant in Europe. That will help us in terms of satisfying our customers, but it will also drive our sustainability credentials. This helps us reduce sending scrap and waste around the world and makes the supply chains ever more sustainable, which is a massive part of aviation at the moment, and especially moving forward. It also allows us to be more responsive in terms of timing, which can be critical in aviation.
I think leather is probably one of the most sustainable materials. Man has been upcycling the hide from the meat industry for thousands of years and long before the climate crisis. I'm Dr. Warren Bowden. I'm the Sustainability and Innovation Director for Scottish Leather Group. Sustainability is everything we do. We pioneered the world's lowest carbon leather production through circular manufacture. We need to change from linear to circular. That circularity is about recovering resources, reusing those resources, not wasting those resources, and sourcing the chemistry that we're using from responsible sources that are able to be sustainable, as opposed to a linear system where we use it once and throw it away. The water we use in leather manufacture comes from our own loch. This is a private water supply, but Even within that, and despite the fact that we live in a relatively wet country, we actually use about half as much water to make a hide as that in a semi-arid country. The water that we do use, which is used efficiently, is treated in our own works. 40% of that is recycled back into our own production. That isn't recycled is discharged via others to the watershed that the water came from, and treated back to river water quality before it's discharged back into the environment. We've constantly been innovating to find better ways of making leather. We've investigated and are using enzymes, probiotics, other bio-based materials to replace some of the more historical tanning agents that have been used. We still use some conventional tanning agents, but our direction of travel is to get towards plant-based materials. So for example, plant-based, bio-based PU coatings to replace fossil fuel-based PU coatings, the use of vegetable-based dyes, the use of enzymes as natural materials rather than using mined chemicals for the unhairing process, and a few novel tannages which are yet to come to market, which will, I think, change the way that leather making is seen.
We have an eye on the future, so we continually invest in new techniques and to keep ourselves as a leader in the industry, both the aviation industry and the leather industry.
Traditionally, leather making has been one of those industries which the vast majority are, which is linear. In other words, you take your raw materials, you take your hides, your water, your chemistry, you put it in a factory, you make your end products, and the consumer buys it. That's the old way of doing things. That's linearity, and something like 92% of all products on the planet are made that way, as indeed the rest of the leather industry continues to produce waste and dispose of it. Instead of that, we took a view to creating our own plant that was able to convert that waste into something useful. And in fact, if you convert all of the waste produced from leather making into heat, it's actually producing more heat than is needed for the equivalent amount of leather production. A key piece of our circularity is the thermal energy plant that you can see behind me. This plant converts our wastes into heat, and that heat goes back into the factories. That heat is used to make leather, which obviously produces waste. That waste is then converted back into heat in the plant, which therefore circularizes our manufacturing process. The process works through conversion of our normal production wastes, dries them, gasifies them, and recovers the heat that produces steam that goes into the factory. It replaces steam that would otherwise be produced by combustion of fossil fuels. So we designed, built, conceived this plant several years ago and have been running it for now nearly a decade. It is unique, it's ours, it's patented, and it allows us to produce not just the heat from production, but also to claim low carbon leather, which is part of that patent. We actually export more heat as oil than we consume in production. So we're a net exporter of energy. It doesn't have to just be close coupled to manufacturing, which is what we have here. The heat that we generate is equivalent to powering approximately 2,000 homes. But added to that is the possibility of what we call the take-back scheme.
We are pioneering the use of our thermal energy plant to take back our product at the end of life, which can be as long as 10 years, and reuse that material to power the creation of new material, and thus removing the requirement for landfill. That will help the product become increasingly sustainable and help our customers as the aviation industry continues to strive to lower its carbon footprint.
A take-back allows our customers to return their product at end of its life to us. We can convert it back into heat and therefore produce more leather to replace that on their aircraft or indeed in other consumer goods, and giving the product circularity in its lifetime as well as circularity during the manufacturing process.
The industry is changing, and airlines and seat OEMs are looking for new solutions. Solutions that are quicker, faster, more efficient, and more sustainable. At Muirhead, around 70% of our production is bespoke, specifically detailed out by the client in terms of colour, appearance, and performance. One of the benefits of having complete control of the supply chain is that we can hone every aspect of that leather making process to the customer's end needs. The likes of a low-cost carrier is really looking for value from the leather. They want it to last a long time. And for one of the world's biggest low-cost carriers, we make a lightweight, high-performance leather. That product has already been in service for 5 or 7 years and will probably last 10 years. That's because we've built the product up. Because we have control of the raw material and all of the processing, that lets us direct all the production processes for the end customer. This can be from anything from Emirates, Etihad or Qatar, first and business class, all the way to other parts of the market such as Ryanair and the other low-cost carriers. They take quite different products, some that benefit more and focus more on luxury, and others that are more focused on flying 8 segments a day, 365 days a year. And we can control the product to make sure that it's best matched for the application. And that means the customer expectation is exceeded. They can either have an extremely luxurious interior that has a certain performance and character, or they can have a high-performing interior that they can fly for 10 years. An example of that would be the likes of Malaysian Airlines, who we've recently won a refurbishment contract with. They've come back to Muirhead for the second time because last time we did their interior, it flew for 10 years. And we calculated in that even including the cost of making the covers, each passenger place cost them 2 pence or 3.5 cents a day over 10 years, which is tremendous value for money for an airline. It's very expensive to take an aircraft out of service. It's a really good example of value for the airline, but increasingly the stronger message there is it's an even stronger proposition in terms of sustainability. If we look at what that cost Malaysian, we have the monetary value, but more important than that, there's an element of sustainability in this because they haven't had to replace these covers for 10 years. So they bought 24,000 meters of leather and they used that for 10 years. And at the end of that period, we will have the option of processing that to create more energy to create their next orders of leather. If they had gone with a non-leather material, they probably would have had to buy 48,000 meters of product, which would then end up in landfill. And as we know, the pressure on the aviation industry is to reduce its carbon impact and improve its sustainability.
We produce the world's lowest carbon leather. Over the course of this journey, which has been from 2003 to date, we've reduced the carbon footprint as measured by international metrics by over 90%. We source responsibly from our local hide sector. Most of that comes within 400 miles. It's from a fully traceable system known as the cattle tracing scheme, which applies in the UK. And separate to that, from alternative but complementary traceability systems that apply elsewhere in Europe. It means that we have complete capture of all of the data, the sourcing, the animal welfare, and the conditions in which the animals have been kept throughout their life cycle. And then the byproduct that comes to us, the hides, has the same level of traceability as you'd see with food-grade material.
One of the things that Muirhead has always done is used UK and Irish cattle. Now, the leather that we use obviously is a byproduct from the food industry. If we don't use it, it will end up in landfill, which is obviously very bad for the environment. The fact that we only use hides from the UK and Ireland means that we can say with confidence that we only take hides that are sourced from a 400-mile radius. So Muirhead customers will never have to worry about being caught up in supply chains and some of the challenging issues that have been undermined in animal welfare, deforestation, etc. We also have complete traceability of the hides that we use. And again, this is something we've seen driven particularly in the automotive industry, but we're now seeing it come across into the aviation industry. People want to know where their products are coming from so they can understand the impact on the environment and sustainability. And we have complete control of our production process and our sourcing, and we can trace back to the farm that our leather came from.
We work very closely with our supply chain, including the hide supply chain and verification bodies such as QMS, Quality Meat Scotland. This allows us to utilise systems such as the cattle tracing scheme, which enables us to see the origin and indeed the life of the hide before we receive it. It means we have full traceability of all of that material. That, however, is not the same globally.
One of the things that makes us unique in the aviation industry is that when we offer leather to a customer, we actually tan the leather ourselves. We have our own tanneries located here in Scotland, and we have therefore control of the whole process. The minute the hide leaves the food chain, we have whole control and we can manage that towards the end product. Many suppliers in the industry buy hides in that have already been tanned elsewhere, normally elsewhere in the world. So there's a carbon impact to that and a sustainability impact into that, but probably most importantly, there's an impact in terms of a loss of control. It's a little bit like cooking a recipe and you're being given the food half cooked and you finish it off. You don't have control of it. That's not the case here at Muirhead. We have complete control of the manufacturing process, and that allows us to give the reassurance in terms of consistency and delivery on time. As well as being a leader in aviation, we benefit from being part of a wider group, the Scottish Leather Group. Our sister company provides leather for the interiors of luxury and premium automotive interiors, the likes of Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin, Range Rover and Lincoln. Equally, we can help them with some of the learnings that we have with respect to lightweight product. Indeed, some of the lightweight leather that we use in aviation, you can now see in McLaren sports cars. One of the trends we're seeing at the moment is the use of more pattern within parts of the aircraft cabin. And that's something we've also seen in some of the other areas that we support at Muirhead, the likes of Philips in their consumer electronics business, Mulberry in some of their handbags and their leather goods we're now working with, but also with Macallan, the famous Scottish whisky company. We're seeing more introduction of patterns, detail and styling. So that is a trend that we are seeing across the board, including aviation.
We're working with Mulberry and other like-minded partners and customers because we think that their consumers are seeking something different. They're looking for a product which isn't linear, which can be recycled at end of life. The Made to Last campaign is ideal for that. It means that all the way through the supply chain, we're able to source from a circular net zero system, produce our products in a circular manufacturing process, and then at the end of life of that bag, take the bag back, convert it back into heat, and make new leather from it. It actually circularizes the whole manufacturing process. It's almost guilt-free activity towards a carbon positive product.
At each stage of the leather making process, we are fine-tuning that product to give the maximum performance in that lightweight leather. And every single Muirhead product comes with a 7-year warranty. Though we've been making leather since 1840, it's not the same leather since 1840. The product has been evolving with the times and the needs of the industry. Some of the more recent ones that we've produced are the world's first lightweight leather that is the same substance. It's the same thickness and the same performance with the same warranties, but it is 1/3 lighter. And we have that flying with some of the best low-cost operators in the world. In response to recent events, we've introduced an active hygiene leather. We believe the first in the world that will actually disinfect itself within 2 hours. And this is tested against proper international ISO standards. And this is an always-on technology, so the interior will always be protected. We've been very pleased with the uptake and already have customers who are planning that into their new aircraft that are being built. The other development which we've introduced recently is anti-soil technology, and this was born from our sister company in the automotive industry, where there's a lot of beige coloured interiors, and one of the challenges you have is staining from the likes of denim onto the beige leather. So the leather that we have developed with anti-soil treatment will actually be harder to stain in the first place, and it will be more responsive to cleaning, so it will look better and last longer. From being installed in the first pressurized aircraft cabin and being the first company to make and pass the FR requirements in leather, we now find that Muirhead leather is in service literally all over the planet, from Alaska to Santiago, from Sydney to Beijing and beyond. In every country you go to, you will be able to see Muirhead leather on aircraft.
We're doing this because we want to produce leather for our customers and for their consumers. Many of the brands that we're working with have their own aspirations towards carbon neutrality, net zero, or to just do things right. We think the work we've been doing over the past 20 years is positioning ourselves perfectly to work with those customers who want to deliver a net zero product, or even potentially a carbon positive product to their consumers. Muirhead and Scottish Leather Group have been on a sustainability journey for the last 18 years, and it will continue. We were producing leather with a carbon intensity which was world leading then, and now, having reduced it by more than 90% since our benchmark year, we're actually heading towards not just net zero by 2025, but actually potentially producing a carbon positive product that is positive to the planet after 2025. We do that through a whole series of metrics. Circular manufacturing is a key topic within that. We convert our own waste to heat through our own thermal energy plant. We recycle our water. We responsibly source and utilize chemistry extremely efficiently. Any waste that we have within our process is recovered through the thermal plant and circularized. We minimize the amount of waste that we dispose externally. And indeed, by 2025, we should be net zero, both in carbon and zero in terms of waste disposal. We believe this allows us to produce the world's lowest carbon leather, as measured independently through ISO standards and through life cycle analysis, which captures all of the activities of leather manufacturing. Life cycle analysis is almost a carbon accounting system for leather and for any other products. It captures absolutely every touch point in manufacturing, whether that's water, resources, chemistry, or indeed the source of the raw material, i.e. the hide, the byproduct of the meat sector. But a lot of the innovations that we're working on today are really evolutions of things that were just seed ideas. Some of those ideas are becoming real products, and some of those are spawning, if you like, secondary and tertiary opportunities. Many of the innovations that we're seeing, however, are not just in leather, they're actually in parallel to leather. For example, in collagen, utilization of collagen, which is this fantastic natural biomaterial. So many fundamental properties. I mean, we're covered in collagen, and it's essential for things like skin repair, health, diet, but also it's a structural material, and those structural materials can replace things that we've been reliant upon in fossil fuel sector for years. For example, plastics. Could you use collagen type materials instead of plastics? Which the answer to which is yes, you can. But obviously there's a lot of learning. It's almost like reinventing the same materials and converting that collagen into a different form while still using the same raw material.
Muirhead can offer our customers the lowest carbon leather on the basis of our sourcing policy, the fact that we tan and process and have control of everything ourselves here within Scotland. We can help our customers reduce their carbon footprint. Sometimes we know in aviation the supply chains can span the globe, and we've looked and mapped on occasion the traceability of our hides in a supply chain back and forth before it's actually delivered on the aircraft, and we can help shorten and speed up that process.
Muirhead, as part of the Scottish Leather Group, has been innovating throughout its history. In more recent years, we have developed processes such as the thermal plant, which is unique, new leather properties such as antiviral leather, but also innovations that are coming, innovations that are transformational, converting what was seen previously as wastes from our production and adding value to them, replacing existing markets, existing materials, but also at end of life of leather. Have you ever wondered what happens to all of those shoes and all of those seat covers at the end of their life? Well, we have an opportunity to take them back, not just to recover the heat from them, but actually to convert them into secondary products through some rather novel applications, through understanding the protein chemistry and indeed the tanning chemistry, and being able to convert them into new materials at the end of their life.
The combination of ownership, investment, and innovation has already led us to being the lowest carbon leather producer in the world. But that's not stopping us. We're continuing to work on our journey to a net zero future.
We have a really good story to tell. It's real, and it's based upon not just the activities that we do within Scottish Leather Group, but also the supply chains that we use, which involve Scottish agriculture, the infrastructure around us, and the facility that we have to use renewable energy, to recycle water, to treat it, to use net zero farming, which is all around us. And it's one of the examples, I think, that really other countries, companies could be adopting, even if it's only just inspiration for others to use.